Well, if you're somebody looking for passion and purpose in your work, you definitely came to the right place. Today, we're going to solve that problem. We are bringing on a very special guest, Ms. Tamra Andress. She is a published author, a speaker, runs conferences, and has one of the top 1% podcasts on the planet, the Fit and Faith podcast. So she's going to be talking about finding that best you and how you can bring that and integrate that with your work. If you're new to this channel, we interview some of the brightest minds on the planet when it comes to all things entrepreneurship, sales, and marketing. Yes, we look at it through the lens of a real estate agent. I mean, come on, look at me. I look like I'm definitely going to try and sell you something, but I don't do any courses. I'm not selling coaching, none of that jazz. Just connecting you with amazing people who have helped me. And I've spent a lot of time with Tamara. I've heard her speak on many, many different topics. And this is an interactive podcast. So if you're on the live stream on YouTube, you're on LinkedIn or Facebook, we are using StreamYard. So all the comments actually go into the comments area here, and you can ask any questions live. We'll be able to connect you with Tamara, but I'm not going to waste any more time. This is going to be a fun one. So let's get right into the episode. Welcome to the Prime People Podcast, where we cover all things that got us to where we are today, our team building strategies, the marketing and sales tips that we've learned through thousands of transactions, productivity tips, ways to really just hold yourself accountable to accomplishing what you want to accomplish, and all things content creation, personal development, and not to mention we have some of the best guests on the planet. We definitely do. And today it's Tamara. How are you?
I love it. It was so good. It's really fun to be on the other side of the show. I'm like, the countdown is on and I have no idea what's going to happen. So this is going to be awesome. Thanks for being here.
It's like when you stop driving yourself around and you have a chauffeur. It's a little bit different than you driving the boat, right?
Thanks for driving, Justin. I like it.
My pleasure. I mean, you had me on your podcast. We had so much fun just talking about our stories, our families, our purpose. And I think that's what led to this conversation. I do think the people out there are struggling, right? I think people are hurting in their work and they're feeling a lack of fulfillment, which leads to a lack of passion, which leads to overwhelm and stress. Yet, if you can have fun and you can be smiling and you can be playful in your work, that's where it doesn't really feel like work and you actually attract more in business and wealth. So why don't you give a little bit of your origin story first so we can give some context and then we'll dive right into the conversation.
Yeah, as you're even talking about the overwhelm concept, I mean, entrepreneurship was my life. It has been my life for a really long time. I've really been immersed in it since I was bit by the bug, even when I was little. I remember selling on the corner all of the little bracelets that I would make or the lemonade stand, right? And I'm sure a lot of you guys had that mentality, but I really had always looked to leadership and entrepreneurship for my life. By example, from my mom, who had multiple businesses growing up. And I went to college for business and then jumped right into the entrepreneurial realm. I had 7 different businesses in the time I was 20, but you're talking about overwhelm. And I was 29 operating 2 global companies, and all of which were like 70, 80 hours a week. I was married and had a not even 1-year-old and a 2-year-old at home. And so overwhelm was like second nature to me, but I honestly thought that that's how it was supposed to be. And this was the idea of the American dream. And so wasn't everybody running around like a chicken with their head cut off and disconnected from their families and disconnected from even their internal core? I didn't even have an operating system that was healthy enough to be able to listen to my own intuition or discernment. Talk about like figuring out the voice of God. That's a whole nother conversation. But I was at that age and I had one of the things I call not only my quarter life crisis, but my tombstone moment, where I pulled into my driveway and I had a question to ask myself: am I going to be an entrepreneur on my tomb, or am I going to be a mother and a wife? And I chose the hard thing. And a lot of people would think that the hard thing would be the entrepreneurial 70, 80 hour work week. But the hard thing for me was being a kick-ass wife and an amazing mom. Not because I wasn't innately called to do it. I was, and I think many people are, but because it took more effort and it took me slowing my roll. And you can hear by how fast I talk that slowing my roll is really hard. Rest is really hard. But when I came into taking that pause on my life and really slowing down to find out not only who I am at the core, and also how I truly want to operate versus how I've been dictated to operate my entire life. I stopped achievement-driven success. I stopped perfectionism. I stopped listening to the people's voice and start listening to those who really are influential in my life as well as my own. And so it's been an interesting journey and evolution since that time. It's been 6 years now. And I have definitely stepped into the operating in joy as a joyful entrepreneur, operating playfully in the way that I create sales and serve people, and ultimately realizing and recognizing that we do, like you said, people need this so desperately, and they honestly just don't know how to unlock it.
Yeah, I mean, my industry is one of the worst. You see real estate agents that are chasing success, and they look at another agent that's just posting just sold or just listeds every day, and they're like, well, when I do that, then I'll be okay. Or when I get a listing sign up, then I'm going to get all the listings. When in reality, the people that get the listings are the ones that show up, do the work consistently, and they attract clients to them because they become undeniable. Where I think a long time in my life, I chased other people's versions of success, and it took me a long time to realize that, taking care of those core competencies, right? Like my order. And again, we align on the faith side of things. So this is going to be an interesting conversation from that standpoint. Faith is at the very top of my list because I got to have my spiritual life and my relationship with God right in order to then serve my family. And I also have to make sure I take care of my fitness and my fun. My work is actually the last thing on my list. Publicly, everybody probably thinks I work all the time because I just put out a lot of content around work. But I take care of those things first so that I'm in a happier mood at work. So how would you coach somebody that's maybe drowning right now and finding out like, well, I don't even know where to start. I don't know my purpose. Like, what actionable advice could you give that person?
Yeah, well, I think one of the biggest things is recognizing that purpose is not a destination. It really is a process. And so you're searching for something or some place, or when I get here, then I'll be successful. But what if there is no tomorrow? What if your next breath is your last? Can you honestly say that you're standing in a space of success? And success is wealth, but wealth in not the world's mindset. It's the Galatians 5:22. If you're not familiar with the Bible, that's okay. But it's understanding the definition of wealth connected to kindness, goodness, joyful, peace, right? That transcends all understanding. Like, I want to stand in that space where I feel like right now it'd be okay if it was my last breath, or I cannot wait to take the next one. And so I love how you shared that the spirituality piece was at the top, because oftentimes people will share this like wheel, right? And it's got 5 things on the wheel, and it's like faith, family, fitness, fun, right? Finances. And that to me showcases that like only a segment of your life can be focused on something that's so critical, like your family. So you're saying when you're focused on another element of your wheel that you've just left your family in the dust. Or if you're focused on fitness, then that means that my faith doesn't have anything to do with it when I'm at play operating in my workout, right? All of them go together. And so maybe your faith is in the center, it's at the core. But to me, I think alignment is ultimately how I discovered my purpose. And alignment, and I kind of categorize it with this 5H model, call it the joy zone, but it's like starting with your heart, that identity factor that we talked about. That could be your faith for us. I know that it is. And then it goes into your head, which is your mindset. And so it really doesn't matter what everyone else is saying. It's where is your mind? We talk about things like atomic habits, or what's actually being shattered in your head when everything around you is silent. I know you still hear a lot, even in the silence. And so what is that on repeat? What does that music sound like? Are you in flow? Are you in rhythm? Are you able to dance when no one's watching? Are you able to dance when there's no music?
Oh, sorry, we lost Tamara. I thought that was my connection. I figured with all this glass and metal, that was me. So I'll keep the show going for a couple minutes while she pops back in here. This is what happens with the metaverse and the technology, is we are all working so hard to keep it flowing. She is back in studio, so Tamara will be back. I'm curious about the flow side of things because I want to be like the Kobe of life. I want to be in my flow. Tamara, can you hear me? There she is.
Hello?
I didn't know if that was my internet connection or you're good. You're there.
I can only see me.
Oh, really?
I don't know if I should keep telling you about the model. I don't know if Justin's even hanging out with us anymore.
I'm here.
But since we're live, I'll keep you entertained. So there he is. He's coming back.
Am I here?
Maybe, maybe not. All right, I'm going to keep you entertained. All right, so I talked about heart, then I talked about head. It's that mindset piece. And then I talk about health. And health really is a priority, even above your home, which is the next one, because it's knowing that if you cannot fuel the people that you're connected to based on the way that you're fueling yourself, then you're actually depleting the people that are in your relational capital realm, in that wealthy category of human or family, or maybe your children. And so I really think prioritizing that is critical. Then it goes into your home. What's your nest egg look like, right? And who is it that is getting your energy, your information? I'm getting messages from that's awesome. Justin, I'm hoping that you guys can hear this and it's live. But lastly, after that, it is this understanding that you've got heart, you've got head, you've got health, you've got home. And then it goes to what a lot of people prioritize is your handbag. And since we're hanging out with dudes and realtors as well, I guess realtors can be dudes and women. My podcast and kind of my business is catered towards both as well. But the man bag, right? The purse, the man purse is totally coming back in. Maybe it's a fanny pack for you. I don't know what they call the shoulder slings these days, but they're very fashionable. And Justin's super fashionable. So I know he would probably appreciate that. I still don't see him hanging out with us. I could talk to you.
Okay, so she just took off. I'm still here on the live cast. I'm going to pull it up on YouTube. This is the reality of podcasting. If you've ever run a podcast before or you're scared to, do not be scared. Stuff happens all the time. We can trim it down after. It's all good. And I'm going to pull Tamara back on. Just give me 1 second. I'm going to go live and then see if we can see her. She's back in studio now. It says the devices are not connected, but here she comes. The real kicker is, can she see me? Jump in the comments. Let me know if you think she's going to be able to see me this time, or if you think she's going to be disconnected.
I can see me. I can't see you.
That's so crazy. I just talked to producer E. Can you hear me?
I can now. I couldn't before.
Well, you can talk because I can actually see you in the stream. Like I'm watching on YouTube, and it seems like, yeah, it seems like we're good on YouTube. It may just be something with a camera connection. So we're going to do the audio version of this. And Tamara, we go back a ways on audio, don't we?
We do.
So I think we'll be just fine, even if I'm the one looking at you and you're just staring at a black screen.
Okay, this sounds good. No worries. We're hanging out in Clubhouse all the time where I don't get to see you, but it's always more engaging. So yeah. I don't know if you got to hear like really where I draw purpose from and how people can really get centered in that. But it was this understanding.
The internet does not want this episode to happen, but we will make up for it. I promise you. Drop any questions that you guys have. I'm here. A free coaching for an hour if you want. I'm getting some phone calls in right now. Hopefully that's not somebody calling me about the internet, but she's calling me on the stream. Oh, there she is. She's in the other stream. There's Tamara everywhere. There, the camera's fine. Can you see me now?
I can see you.
Woo! There you go.
What's happening?
Matt LaMarche is excited. Matt LaMarche is all over Clubhouse. Good dude. What's good, Maddie? Derek, Bixler. It's like the whole Clubhouse family. Derek's in Breakfast with Champions all the time.
All right.
Mountain climber, all kinds of fun stuff. Extreme sports guy. Derek, send Tamara a DM. I think you guys.
Yes, for sure. Do you know Carrie Jack? Are you familiar with him?
I know the name. I'm terrible with names.
I know, me too. Well, you just said mountaineer, and so it made me think we were on a show yesterday. He's got the Smart Business Show. Okay. You guys got to get connected, but he hosts men's retreats in Montana, and it's all around like fly fishing and being outdoorsman. And
wait.
Really
What's
good
his name again? Carrie Jack?
I told you, Carrie with a C, C-A-R-Y, Jack. He's really rad, connected to a lot of incredible people. You guys would totally jive.
So I'm completely going down a wormhole, but I found a place last year. So my wife and I take these road trips. I think I've told you about them with our motorhome.
Yes.
And we actually found a place called Prime Land, which is funny because our company's named Prime.
Yes.
And it's exactly that. It's this like giant conservation area, thousands of acres. So much so that if you rent a cabin there and you order nighttime food, that the bears will come out when the drivers get there. That's how much wildlife there is at this place.
Oh my God.
Unbelievable. So yeah.
You're tipping them massively just to bring the food to the door.
Yeah. They're so
or they're
scared.
tipping you to come get the food from the car.
Basically, yeah. It's pretty funny. So you really have to make sure that you're aware of your surroundings at all times. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about being aware of your surroundings in business and protecting your power. Because I think that's a big part of what we're discussing here is making sure that you have an idea of your core identity and the things that make an impact in your business. And, also how the surroundings can pull you away from that. I think that's a big problem in our industry, is the distractions of life and living for the world versus living for purpose, right?
Well, I think you do such a great example of this. Even what you said earlier is like, it might appear to the world that you're working 24/7, but here you are taking a road trip and hanging out in the wilderness. It's the knowing that like we have shiny light syndrome and we have comparisonitis, right? And we're constantly
comparisonitis. I like that.
We're constantly looking at what other people are doing, and we're comparing ourselves to them at that moment, thinking, wow, they have so much going for them. Their success, their life looks so glamorous. And I was in a really cool conversation of like futurists talking towards Web3 and NFT and what is that actually going to do to social media? And we can go down these wormholes, we can go down these rabbit holes, but ultimately I believe the goal of all of these things was connection in the forefront. And so to be able to be connected to people and actually know the truth of what's going on behind the scenes is so much more valuable than watching from a camera lens or watching from your phone or device. And so if we can really turn off the shiny light syndrome and we can come in and back into this alignment factor that you and I were talking about at the beginning, knowing our purpose and mission, then you integrate the other things that might look like marketing tools or systems or other streams of income. You integrate after you know who you are and what you're meant to do for an impact perspective versus I want to be all these people and really none of them are the core of who you are, which is what I did for a decade. So I can speak directly to it.
That's super interesting. I think we'll watch this happen with a lot of agents that don't have any clarity of purpose of what they want to do. And I tell them, like, you're better saying no to 90% of your business, stay focused on your niche, build that niche, build the skill set, build another one. Also, we're dropping our vlog very soon. We typically would do a monthly vlog and we put it around a topic. And the topic was actually the productivity planner, right? So like my perfect day. Well, the funny thing was I never shot the outro for the vlog. I mean, it's been sitting there for a month and a half, which has been busy. I'm like, oh, I got to get to it. I just shot it right before this episode. And you know what I said? And this is a teaser for anybody that's going to see the long-term vlog. I said, guess what? Not every day is going to be perfect. Like, this is the framework of what I've tried to build. These are like the core important things and what I need to do for those things in my actual calendar. And I put them everywhere. But like this vlog's an example that things don't go right sometimes. And like I messed up the end and I didn't get it out on time, but like, oh, well, so what? As long as I have the structure, if I don't hit it 100% of the time, as long as my identity isn't wrapped up in that, I'm going to be okay. And I can have fun with it and I can make it a part of the story in the video. So extrapolate on that a little bit. I think people sometimes they are defined by their successes or by a narrative that doesn't have to be the case, right?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of power to that. And I have this conversation consistently with people that I'm teaching or just even my team is this idea of the MIT list, right? The most important task list, and knowing each day that like I just forefront 3. What are the 3 things that I accomplished today? And if we go back to that like spectrum of head, heart, health, home, handbag, maybe someday it's generating sales. It's actually talking about leads and it is very business and granular, but other days it's just, I need a mental break. Like I just want to be in the word. I want to go run. I want to be outside. And so what are the most important tasks that day? Knowing associated to that is where my identity stands, not even if I check them off or not. So when I go to bed at night, it's not about what did I do today? It's who did I be today? And did I move the needle in my character development? Did I move the needle in the things that matter most? My mind, my body, my soul, my spirituality, my relational capital, which is with my husband, my children. Yeah. And that is how I create momentum, is that every day compounds. It's not perfect, but it is progression. And I know like at the end of the day, when there's that well done, my good and faithful servant, you did it enough. The next breath was worth it. The last breath was worth it. Then I feel like I'm on top of the world. But I remember in that season when I did stop my 2 businesses. Like I said, one was a local in e-commerce, brick and mortar and global e-commerce. And the other one was a nursing bra line that I had created. that came out to the American market first, and then the United Kingdom and Canadian market. And, those are big deals. I really thought when I stroked the contract to those things that was going to be my legacy.
Sure.
And when it went to hell in a handbasket, if you will, and it was a forced quit, I can talk about that too if you want, but I felt like I didn't have that label anymore. I couldn't go into room, especially with men. And I think this is where there's like a gender diversification that is tough, but I couldn't look people in the eyes because I felt like when they asked what I did, and it was a stay-at-home mom or I didn't do anything, is really how I felt, because I slowed down so quickly, so abruptly, that it was in that season where I was sitting in the back porch with my husband and he's like, what are you passionate about? Like, let's just talk about that. Right? He's such a good man. And I had no idea. I couldn't answer that question. And so if you are searching for purpose, which is what a lot of people are buzzword talking about, and you don't even know what you're passionate about, you're going to have a really hard time defining your purpose. And so I went on this exploration, and it was about an 18-month exploration of my passions, my hobbies, the things that you do when no one else is watching, the things that you do for free. And how does that come into play and interaction with all of the people that you serve and you impact on a daily basis? And that is how I build momentum towards my purpose. And I existed in that playful mindset of just exploring and became a magnet to the actual thing that I was intended to do.
So key. And I got taught this years ago in real estate. I love media. I love content creation. I have cameras all over me. 1, 2, 3, 4 cameras, including this, screens galore. But like, I enjoy it. I find a lot of passion and purpose in taking photos, editing videos and stuff like that. But there's also people that I know, they don't care. They don't want to touch it, and they'll just pay somebody to do that. And I think you can integrate things in this world and layer them on top of each other. It's like even cold calling. I'm not a really good cold caller. I'm great at sales and attraction marketing and making sure that like I'm helping amplify everything that we're doing. So I collaborate and I bring in people into my world that are really good at those things and work within their genius zones. And I do think that the world's going this direction, where previously it was like you worked for one company and they ran your life. And then it was like, okay, you work for maybe multiple companies, and the Facebooks and the Googles, they own the internet. But now we're going into a web 3.0. I think we're going into like a world 3.0 where the individuals own the platforms, and Tamara and Justin's jet can line up for a couple minutes. We can kind of fly together, right. And then you go off for a couple months, live your life, and then they realign down the road. Again, how do you choose the people that you align yourself with and amplify what you're doing in their genius zones? Like, how do you attract the right people?
Yeah, that's massive, and actually been an exploration of mine for the last year. I've partnered with my coach, whose name is Mike Zeller. He's actually hangs out with us on Clubhouse nowadays. And he has a book that he just came out with last fall called Your Zone of Genius. And he's done a ton of work on taking all of the different genres of personality tests, one specifically that really attunes to my development, which is called the Wealth Dynamics Test, and understanding how you generate money the best, wealth associated to finances, and how you operate the best, and who do you need in your corner in order for you to stay in that space of genius. Okay. Because you hear about this concept of entrepreneurship and intrapreneurship. Realtors are 1,000% entrepreneurs. I get to work with a lot of them who are super creative, but they're being stuck inside of the game, intrapreneurship. And they feel that concept of overwhelm and burnout because what's being put on their plate to accomplish is not meant for them. Now, does that mean that it's not fun or it's hard work? Yeah, to them, it's hard and it sucks. But when I put in somebody by the name of a Lord or a mechanic, and they come in to support me and they're standing in their zone of genius, they're having a blast with spreadsheets and finances and all the things that we don't want to do. Like you were mentioning sales, and because of this camera, I am assuming when you take that test that you're going to be a star like me. I've got 4 cameras going right now too. Is this knowing that like the reason we're standing in stardomship is not because we're better or superior, and it's not because we're meant to be rich and famous. It's because these lords and mechanics and all of the other ones, there's a supporter, there's an encourager, there's a creator that we're connected to. We're meant to be on that private jet together. And we wouldn't be there if it weren't for those people. And so it's a recognition that we as an ecosystem exist with intention and purpose. And that is how when God looks down from his 50,000 foot lens, he's like, no one here is with without purpose. Every single person has an identifying quality about them that I've gifted them. It's our job to figure out how to align with them. And so really my heart is to see what's your core value. Like we talk about like-hearted and like-minded. And this is biblical concepts of like, we need to have the creative factor, but I need to know that like we're going in the same direction with the same intent to serve and create impact and legacy, and doing so from a heart set of humanity.
Yeah, it's fascinating because a friend of mine, they do large mission trips to Africa, and like talking millions of people would go there, and there'd be the speaker and the person that's on stage, and there'd be all of the people supporting them. And I remember Ryan Harbonke said at one point in time, like, you know, the person that is picking up the garbage, setting up the actual stage and doing all those things is actually more important than the person who's speaking. And that can get twisted. Again, I'm going to address this from the lens of a real estate agent, because one of the biggest issues in my market right now, or in the entire real estate industry, is the age of the celebrity agent. People are watching Selling Sunset, $1 Million Listing. Ryan's a friend and a mentor, so I'm not talking about Ryan, but I mean the spin of you have to be famous and you have to worry more about your TikToks and your skill sets. It's creating such a dichotomy of unhappiness in the industry that if they don't have the followers, they don't hit the vanity metrics, they're not getting the response and the engagement on their social platforms, they're not succeeding. Yet some of the most influential people I know are not influencers, and some of the biggest influencers I know are a sham and bought their followers. So
Yeah.
I think this is a big thing for both of our audiences to make people feel like none of that stuff really matters. So, you know, what are some of the myths that you think when it comes to digital marketing in today's age that people need to be aware of?
Yeah, it's really good. You know, one of the things I've been brought to my attention lately is like all the paid investments that we make as influencers that help to create social authority. Social authority is like, oh, Tamra's on the front of Entrepreneur Magazine. Oh, Justin's on the front of LA Weekly. And I just like to pop the bubble in the truth factors of like, those things are paid. Like we pay to do them. And therefore, the reason that that happens is because it gives you social authority to say, oh, wow, they've done something notable, right? Top 10 coaches in 2022. Awesome. Bravo. But are you actually doing it? Do you have the system to support that? Do you have the truth and the premise and the heart set to say, yeah, that actually is me? So one of the myths is like what you're seeing from a vanity metric perspective or even a vanity placement perspective. It's a lie. It's a sham. It's like the highlight reel, right? And then so simultaneous to that, it's like, I want to know what someone's doing when the camera's off. I want to know how they're operating in that space. Justin sent me a book off camera. No one knew about it. I didn't post and tag and thank him. He sent me a book in his spare time. That takes effort. Not only did he purchase it, he sent it to me, right? And there's a note to it. And so it's the conversations that happen offline that become more valuable to me in the momentum of where I'm going and everyone is going, humanity is going. Yeah. And in this Web3 conversation, it's talking about the decentralization of the internet. And so if that's to take place, and specifically decentralization of things like social media, and in 3 years, social media becomes like Craigslist, what does that do to your business? What does that do to your identity? Someone said to me, who was a part of like the very foundation of MySpace this past weekend, and we were talking, and he was kind of blowing my mind on what's to come over the course of the next several years in this category. And he basically was like, what would happen if none of this mattered tomorrow when it comes to the content that you're creating? And he came back to the two words, curiosity and intimacy. And I want everything that I do to show up in this space. I want to get so curious about people that the questions I'm asking are positioning me into momentum. And so the myth associated to that is that we need to know somebody through the internet in order to be connected to them. But really intimacy, which is like, let's just go get coffee together. Let's just have a conversation like this, Justin, is really what's going to propel both of our networks to come into alignment together. And then the last myth that I would mention is that you can do this without a system. Y'all, if you want to create connection and curiosity and create intimacy in the long term, and you think that you can do it single-handedly without support, it's not going to happen. It's really impossible. And so to know that like you're multifaceted with intention, you can integrate, like you said, all of these different passions, but you have to have a team to support the mission. And whatever that mission is, you've got to find your placement on that team that might not be center stage, and you got to play all out in that role. I love that you brought that up about the person who sets the stage or the person who's cleaning up, because we couldn't do any of those things. No event would even transpire if we didn't have those realms of influence and those people showing up in servant leadership. And so I want to be more like that, right? Like that's how I want to show up more often and more frequently, is less about being center stage and more about helping the people who are sidelines, how they can be center stage and have spotlight in the role that they're meant to do.
So key. And I think that actually brings me to the next point that I want to discuss is, as you're building a community and an organization, whether it's a real estate organization or something else, it's the discussion around valuing those people that are setting up the stage and helping you build those things. Because I do think sometimes what happens is people will build communities online or in real life, or businesses online, real life. They get some traction or they get some clout, yet they forget about all the people that helped get them there. And then they don't communicate what they're doing with those people to really extrapolate what the vision is. And I think when I really think about leadership, the failures of leadership, and I just did a video on this, Jocko Willink's book, Extreme Ownership, there's two concepts that I took from my own presentation after I did it. I'm like, am I doing that effectively? One was effectively communicating where I'm going, why I'm doing all this. Like everything that we do, our North Star for prime real estate is to be the most trusted name in real estate and provide a platform for the people to be their best selves within our organization. Like truly, all the decisions that we make are based around that. But then secondly, making sure that we're not like creating such a complex list of directions for every single person in the organization, that they have the freedom to go out and do the work, and then we can come back and collaborate together. But then listen to them. Like I'm actively trying to get from my agents now, like, what do you want? Like, what are we doing that we need to change? What are we doing that, maybe you don't understand why we're doing it? And the more I do that, the more feedback they give me, the more opportunity I have to fix things. What I've seen go wrong in organizations before is when somebody that's integral to it goes to the leadership and says, hey, I don't really think this is ideal. This is kind of what's happening on the back end, and gives them the opportunity to fix it. The answer that person says is, well, I'm not going to apologize for that if they don't understand why I'm doing what I'm doing. I guess at the end of the day, the question that I have for you is, how can a leader effectively take care of the people that are setting up the stages and make them feel empowered to have a voice and grow together?
So I've been really honed in the leadership realm recently because I'm growing my team. I just brought on somebody new this month. I'm super excited about, and I have another conversation with some people for next week. And so this is a really on-time question, and also something that if we as leaders decide to put as a back burner conversation, everything will crumble, because of the power that everyone at play has in this integration factor. And so the perfect example that I can give you as you're thinking that will relate to parents and maybe you who were a child at one point is like, if we're both drivers, right? And you're driving and all of us get in the car and I'm on your team, Justin, and you've never once asked me like, do I need anything? And I'm sitting there, this has happened to me, where I'm looking out the window and I'm just like crying because I have to go to the bathroom so bad. Yeah. And my dad is not stopping on the side of the road. He's just going because he's on a mission to get somewhere. What is happening to the poor soul of the person who's in your car with you? Have you asked them if they're hungry? Have you asked them where they want to go? And so this past Monday, I ended up having this amazing team meeting where I was asking them what's their real goal and desire. Apart from the mission of obliterate shame and activate purpose, which is what we do in all of the realms of our business development, our podcast, our book writing, all of these things, I wanted to know, like, what is their real goal and desire? And I asked these questions. It was 5 minutes of them sharing, and then it was 2 minutes of the team talking about them as if they weren't there, asking questions of what if. And so one of the examples associated to that was that she wanted to speak more on stage. She had an entire mission towards women that wasn't women and men, because we serve both. And I asked the question in reflection of myself as a leader, what if I have positioned her in a box in her own jail cell and it's my fault that she hasn't spoke out about her story? or it's my fault that she hasn't had the opportunity to stand center stage because I've put myself there first. Yep. And I'm weeping. She's weeping. By the end of the conversation, the entire team has really forecasted where we need to go and how each person has a part on the playing field in such a beautiful organizational chart where everyone is wearing the center spotlight. Everyone is wearing the star, right? And everyone feels completely seen, known, and loved. And ultimately, if it goes back to connection and intimacy at the end of the day, and you're having your own tombstone moment as a leader, what would they put on your tombstone? Yeah. Not a listener, a jerk, like problem oriented instead of solution driven. I want everyone to have a voice. And when you're creating a team, you have to let them be heard because their ideas are sometimes better than yours. As a visionary, as a driver, we're always 10 yards, 100 yards, 1,000 yards, sometimes 10 years ahead of our team. There's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't make you bigger or stronger or smarter. It means you're gifted and you're anointed in the realm of vision. It's prophetic lens. It's an engineering quality that you have. Kudos to you. But if you can't go backwards and tell someone how to map out how it is to get you to that space, you're not an effective leader. You can't stand that far away and expect something to happen without guideline and without intention and without connectivity to say, I want you here at the end of the day, because my end of the day, I'm still 10 years ahead of you. But I need to bring them along for the ride so that they feel empowered every single day to do it.
Biggest mistake I think both leaders and employees can make is just not effectively communicating, right? Like an employee may create a narrative about what the leader is doing and where they're going without actually communicating that with the leader, and then forego an opportunity that maybe the leader was working on for something else, and then look back in here and be like, oh my gosh, I had no idea they were doing that. And the fault falls on both parties. I think It's fascinating though, because I do find people expect other people to know what they're thinking. Like as they be like, well, why did you just tell me that's what you wanted to do? And it's scary, right? Like sometimes people be like, well, I don't want to say that I want to speak on stage because it's this. And I said it to my team this morning. I'm like, I'm going to these places so that I can open doors and then sneak you in the back. Like if you want to come hang out, like at Derek Bixler, I just made a connection with you and him because I saw synergy and maybe like that fun taste for life that you both have. And maybe there's a collaboration to be had there. No dog in the fight for me, but that's just how my brain thinks. You know, those people that are sitting there that feel like they don't have a voice, how do you help them make that first step forward and maybe have a conversation that they're scared of having and realizing is not so scary once you do it?
Yeah. And again, I think it goes back to what I said just briefly in passing is that like come with a solution, right? A lot of times people will come with problems, whether it's problems of what they're experiencing in it, or they're coming with just an idea that doesn't have a roadmap to it. Because you and I are types of people, and I honestly think there are a lot of realtors in this space where we're constantly 10 steps ahead and we forget maybe the shoe, we forget to tie at the front door, right? Because we're like, let's go. And we're energizing is that we want people to come. I want to hear more people. But when they come to me with an idea and I already have 1,000 ideas, I already have my mind map of what's placed where, I need them to come with a solution of how does this connect the dots? How does this serve the overall impact and mission? And so if you don't feel like you have a voice with your leader, you probably need to take a step back and see if that's the person that you really want to connect with. And it goes back to the beginning of our conversation is where is your purpose and are you aligned to their mission, or are you just doing it for a check in the box or a paycheck, or this is where you've been placed? A lot of times realtors do this. They feel like it's a glitz and a glam experience.
Sure.
And so they're going after those vanity metrics, or they're going after even time freedom, right? Like I want to have freedom to be able to do all of these things. And then you all get stuck in the crazy, you get stuck in the overwhelm, you're on the rat wheel and you don't know how to get off because at this point, your entire life has been invested for however many years, all the time, all the relationships connected to you. And so really taking these people, realtors especially, I get to work with realtors all the time. One is specific who was the #1 realtor in Virginia for all relocations. And she's gotten that every single year after year for about 11 years at this point. And she was tired, just so tired, and utilizing coping mechanisms that are all societally normal.
Sure.
5 o'clock somewhere all the time, every day, right? Or not working out, not positioning themselves in this alignment factor. And so she came to me with the question of how can I actually serve and not allow other realtors to get into this place that I've gotten into after 30 years of being in real estate. And we extracted the problem. And she came up with this freedom metric, this freedom framework that she now teaches to beginning realtors so that they do not have to stay in this place and this hardship and this expectation of what other people want for their life. You can be a realtor and be completely free at the same time. And so it's understanding your valuation system, understanding who you're partnering with to make that happen, and making sure if you don't have a voice in the community that you're connected to, that you start acting today to create a voice. Create your own podcast, write your own book, create your own framework, do your own seminars, and understand that you're actually providing fire and fuel to the big centralized location by you standing out and have a separate identity from the actual hub that you operate in.
Yeah, I love that. Like, it completely shifted how I thought of my brokerage probably about a year ago. Because the more I see people in my industry doing the same thing, the more I just swim away as fast as I can. Because it's just, I like doing different things, right? It's just always how I'm built. And I think a lot of people think we're a team. And I'm like, no, we're not a team. Like, we're a platform. Like, Prime is a platform, but Justin's an individual. Taylor's an individual. Adnan is. Betty is. Like, they're all killers at what they do. We come together as a collective and we use the platform to amplify our individual personalities. But it's where the overlap happens that the real magic is. And that's exactly, I think, the future of where things are going is people being selective about the cultures that they're part of. Like, if you have a scarcity mentality, go find somebody that has a scarcity mentality. I promise you'll actually be happier than you will here, because it'll sicken you when people are here and they're succeeding and they're cheering each other and high-fiving each other. I remember I heard somebody say once, there was somebody within our organization that had a podcast, and this person said, well, that person has a podcast. I want to do a podcast. And I just remember thinking, like, go do a podcast. It's free. Turn the camera on, use your iPhone. Like, there's nothing stopping you. But it was a mindset thing where I'm like, well, there's no point in me saying anything because this person has that mentality that person's succeeding, that they're taking something away from me. Like, that's just not the reality of the world that we live in. We live in a world of abundance. And that said, I'm going to give you our rapid fire questions. I'm going to get you out of here by 1:45, and I'll get you on another episode because this was fire. So up to this point, Tamara, what is the greatest lesson that you've learned?
Oh, this point in life or this point in the episode?
In your life.
Oh, gosh. Joy is free.
It is very free, and you are a joyous person. That is very true, even at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Truth.
What are you learning right now?
Leadership. And how to be a more effective leader, not only to my team, but to my children.
Extreme Ownership. If you haven't read it, it is it's completely out of the box for you. It's a military leader, but it's a great book. You'll love the concepts in it.
Okay.
How has failure shaped your life?
It's made me humble and empathetic.
That's a great answer. I think, it gives perspective. That's for sure. What have you read that I should read?
Ooh, have you read my book?
I have not read your book. I should definitely read your book. Yeah, I have stacks of books at home.
Let's go. That, and then also I mentioned Mike Zeller's earlier. It's a really short read. You can read it on one flight, but additionally, it's an activation. So it would take you a month, and between you and all of your team members, you would really learn a lot.
I've got his tab open. I actually wrote down both those names. So I'll look at that after, and I will do that. Are you a person that reads like 9 books at the same time? Because I
do. Audible, in person, they're always everywhere open.
Well, like, I got my Bible. I got like a personal development. I have Dave Grohl's storytelling book, which is phenomenal. I haven't taken the time to actually finish it. And last thing, what have you done that I should do? And it can be anything. It can be jumping out of a helicopter or whatever you want.
I'm trying to think. You need to go to Punta de Mita, and you need to go to Isla Marietas, which is going through a cave to a secret hidden beach and seeing massive whales in the process.
That's crazy. Where is that?
It's in Punta de Mita. It's right outside of Vallarta in Mexico.
Vallarta.
It's one of my favorite places.
If I can take a motorhome there, I'm there.
You can probably pass Texas. Yeah, sure. Why not?
We took our motorhome's been to Manhattan. It has been to Martha's Vineyard. It's been to many places. It should Nantucket. There's no motorhomes on Nantucket.
Impressive.
Small island, big RV. Okay.
Awesome.
Last question, the most important question. How can we add value to you? My platform is yours. Where would you like to tell all of my audience to connect with you? Or is there a passion project you're working on that they can go check out?
Yeah, I've been hanging out in my Facebook group talking about like developing community a lot. So it's the Fit and Faith Network on Facebook if you want to hang out there with me. But if you're just looking for encouragement, if you're looking for a spark of energy or joy or even prayer, send me a DM on Instagram and I will hit you back with a voice memo.
Thank you so much, Anthony Stella, everybody else. I see you, Kendrick Richardson. Thank you for being here. This was another episode of the Prime People podcast. I'm sure we'll have Tamara on again. Thank you so much for joining us, Tamara, and I'll catch you on the next one.
Peace. Thanks.
All right. See you.